I have to record the call. This is call number 6, by the way, of our training. I have to record the call for those that aren't on it. And so I don't want it to be too fragmented. So for those of you listening to the recording, just so you know, I couldn't get on Zoom and we're 15 minutes into the call. So some of them listening here went on to Dana's call. I posted the link to Dana's call and they were listening to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a really super fast summary, you guys. So just hang in there for a minute and then we'll get caught up to where you were, okay? So for this call, you are going to need to have preferably your laptop in front of you to work on. So you can stay on the device you're on right now listening, but if you can have your laptop so that you can, so that I can just show you a few things of how to access the program that you're going to need for level 2. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a separate segment of how to do that piece. You're each going to get a code sent to you. It's a code that you're going to need in order to access the Discover Your Sacred Gifts digital program, which is what you're going to send to your clients in level 2 to listen to, okay? So we'll get to that in a little bit, but I'll do it as a separate recording and that'll make it much easier and cleaner, and then I'll post it into the group because I want you all to have your code in front of you. Okay, so yeah, so this is call number 6, and so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking ahead to aspects of the level 2 program because you're going to be needing it pretty soon. Now you guys got your let's see, you were going to be doing another level 1 client if you needed to and follow up on any missing evaluations. We're going to be reviewing service and planning today, right? Is that the 2 we had said? Yeah. And you're going to start planning on how you want to structure your level 2 clients and review the invitations and send a copy of it to us before you send it out. So let me just check by a head nodding. Did all of you get the level 2 invitations? Okay. Yes. And you've read through them? Good. Okay, so we'll come back to that in a minute. And then also, yeah, I had mentioned last week to be in front of your computers on the call so that we can do that segment, but we'll see how that goes today, and if not, I'll record something separate. Okay, and then if you're listening to the recording and you listened to call number 5 by recording, then you were to let us know, and I really want to thank Shannon, Yvette, you guys have been keeping me posted on where you're at, so that's been really great. And okay, so is there anybody on the call that wants to do a debrief of a level 1 client that they've completed with that we haven't already done or that you haven't posted in Facebook? Okay, Adina, terrific. So we'll just get you to unmute yourself. Okay. Good. All right. So when you were reviewing the scores and choosing, well, actually, first of all, who are you debriefing?
Christina.
Okay, perfect. And so when you were reviewing her scores, was it easy to choose the gifts you wanted to debrief?
The first 3 were easy, and then she had like a 7 or 8 way tie. So that was interesting. So I just kind of used my intuition and just chose whichever ones. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. And did you do the session in person or by call?
By phone.
Okay. And so what worked really well for you with Christina in this process?
Well, as usual, your script, outstanding, because Christina is a girlfriend. And so, yeah, staying on task was important and just bringing it back. Yeah.
Okay. Good. And so timing-wise, did it work okay?
Timing-wise, we were 90 minutes, but that's because we're girlfriends and we're a bit chatty. So I'm sure we could have done it in 60.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, we allow for 90 minutes, right? So that's all right.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you sort of feel now comparing Christina to some of the others you've done that you could do to have a better experience for you next time?
It was actually pretty good. It was a pretty good experience. So I think just, again, the more I do it, the easier, the better and more smooth it will flow. But yeah, I can already see she was my 5th person, actually, because I had done my husband in there. and it's just getting a lot more natural.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, right? Okay, perfect. So then on a scale of 0 to 10, hi Kaylee, I see a little Kaylee. I see a little Kaylee popping in. Jacqueline has, hi Kaylee. Jacqueline has her granddaughter visiting from out of town. Okay, so on a scale of 0 to 10, what would you rate yourself for this?
I say 9.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now you've completed, I've got you debriefed and the evaluations in on Lauren, Laura, April. You've debriefed Christina. Have I sent you that evaluation?
No.
Okay, so we're waiting on that. And I haven't checked my emails today, so it could be that it's
Okay.
there. And do you want to add your husband to the list?
Yeah, sure. I could add him in.
Okay, and what's his first name?
Chris.
Chris, okay.
And I'd also done April in there as well.
Yeah, I have April written down, and
okay, perfect.
We've got her complete. So, okay. And then for Chris, you can, if you want to, you can do the debrief in the group.
Okay.
Of your experience. And then as soon as I get the evaluation on Christina or Chris, that'll be your 4th, and you'll be complete level 1.
Yay. Okay, thank you.
All right, great. Okay, and Randy, I know that you did your, I see that I read your debriefs that you put online. Is there one that you want to do live?
I don't know if Hasm had sent you an evaluation yet or not, but he was supposed to send it to you this morning. If he hadn't sent it.
I have an evaluation. I have evaluations from Abdullah, Hazim, Mohammed, Randa, and Labna. So I have all your evaluations in. The debriefs, you've done Abdullah, you've done Hazim, you've done Mohammed. So Randa and Labna, you've written up in the group. Is there one of those that you want to debrief either of those live?
I do Rhonda, yeah.
Okay, so with Rhonda,
she was the most challenging one.
Okay, and did you do that in person?
Yes, I did. Okay,
and you've done them all in person, right?
I did, yes.
Okay.
And I'm going to do another one on the telephone. I just haven't figured which one out I'm going to do yet.
Okay.
Who it is I'm going to.
Okay, perfect. And so what worked well in the interview with Rhonda?
Well, the reason I chose Rhonda is because Rhonda's English was not that good. And some of the results that she gave because of that were a little surprising to me, but I liked it. She was the 4th person I did. And I was able to figure out what the problem was. And she had 3 really good and strong gifts that she had exhibited already, like I could see, and the evaluation sheet showed that. It's just that she had 2 other gifts in there that did not suit her at all, but they scored high. So that was kind of interesting to me. I enjoyed the experience because it was a good learning for me as well.
Yeah, and so you guys, Randy's been doing all 4 of his people, 5 of them in Egypt with people that whatever their language, I don't even know what it is, Egyptian?
Arabic.
Arabic is their first language, and English as second language, and like for some of them, not a strong second language. And those questions, and it's a good point, those statements are some of them are pretty complex, even people who are English is their first language in the workshops, they put up their hand and they'd say, I don't know what you mean by this, or what do you mean by this? So for somebody to do it with English as a second language, if it's not strong, would be very challenging. So what some people have done is most of the time when this has happened, Randy, with the guides have actually spoken that other language, meaning, we have guides from Peru and they're doing people in Spanish, and they actually can then sort of translate some of the statements if they're stuck, or they do the interview in that language. So that's a big challenge for you. You've got somebody who, English is the second language, it's not strong, and you're not fluent in Arabic to be able to sort of do the dialoguing in their language, right?
Right.
Yeah. So pick someone that's a little easier for your last one. Easier meaning language-wise. Pick somebody that language isn't an issue at all, but maybe somebody you're not super connected to, or you wouldn't have any concept of their gifts. And if you don't have someone, I can give you somebody that you don't know that would be willing to do the process with you. Okay.
You mean other than the people I've done already?
Yeah, like I'd like you to do one person who has that you're on the phone, first of all.
I will, yeah.
Yeah, I want you to do one on the phone for sure, and then where you don't have the language challenge would be really good.
Sure. No, I do plan on doing that, and right.
Good. So all I need is a. Actually, I don't need anything, Randy. You're complete on 4 as well. Yay! So you've officially done the minimum you need for level 1, but I'd encourage you to do a few more if you can. Okay, so especially now that you're actually in that audio program, that's going to be really super helpful. All right.
That was good.
Yeah. we won't let the rest of them in on that. Okay, so great. So how would you score yourself in terms of how you felt you did, Randy, on that one from 0 to 10?
Actually, I think I did fairly well. I was nonplussed when 2 of her gifts. She said, "No, that's not me at all," and I'm thinking, okay, and regroup, retreat, and re-engage.
Yeah, good for you. And sometimes getting into that part 2, where you start asking them about, is there anything they love doing that you guys haven't talked about? That's where sometimes something will come up to the surface, and then you got to quickly kind of scramble, get out your booklet, and find another gift that you feel might align with that. But that'll all come with time. Yeah.
Yeah, it will.
Okay. Excellent, Randy. Thank you. All right. So anyone else want to do a debrief?
I do.
Okay, go ahead. Kathy, who would you like to do?
Charlotte.
Okay.
I also did my husband. We had an interview this morning, but I'm not ready to debrief him yet.
Okay.
Actually, it wasn't. We kind of went off the rails with that one.
All right then. Okay, so I had written down. I had Cassidy written down. Are we crossing Cassidy and Bo off?
Yes,
okay.
They are my clients, and we haven't yet got to them. It's possible before the end of the training that we'll actually, I'll get together with them and do that, because that it is part of the program that I've offered them.
Perfect. Okay, good.
Okay,
so let's do Charlotte. So with Charlotte, when you were reviewing her scores and choosing the gifts, was it fairly easy to do or challenging?
It was actually, at first it was a bit challenging. Her scores were all really low. And at first when I opened it up, I immediately said, oh, that can't be right. I mean, even knowing what I know and having the experience with it. And then her highest score was a 10 in simplicity, in a lifestyle gift. But then once I took a closer look, I just chose the ones that were a little bit higher. Charlotte is is one of my Pathways of Light ministerial students. So I felt like I knew her, but I mean, truly was excited about learning more and helping her to learn more about herself and her gifts.
Okay. And was it in person or on the phone?
It was on the phone.
Okay. And then what worked really well for you in this one compared to some of the other ones?
I think approaching it from with a beginner's mind, and because I seem to have a natural gift or ability to kind of spot people's gifts and identify them just by interacting with them, and especially after spending time with them. But I was very conscious not to do that with her. I didn't want to pin her down to what my perspective was. And I was really happy that I did that, because I really was approaching the conversation and the whole assessment from a place of, I don't know. And even at one point, she even asked me, what do you think? Do you think that this is a gift for me? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. This is, it's just something you can experiment with and something to look at, and we'll see. So I was really conscious of not doing that.
Yeah, good for you. Good. That's great, especially with people you know. So, and the reason I say that is because remembering that there are things that people are really, really good at and very effective at that may not be a sacred gift for them. And they might be really good at doing something, and it might not be, it could be something they don't particularly enjoy, or that in fact it actually is, just energy draining for them, right? So that's why we don't want to make assumptions based on the results we see only, because their experience is important as well. Okay, good. So then on a scale of 0 to 10 for you, in terms of how you felt about it, Kathy, being prepared and having set your intention and everything, what would you score yourself?
I would say a 10.
Okay, good.
I felt really good. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so, and I think I've sent you her evaluation, right?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, good. Okay, great. So I think that's it then. Anyone else? Jacqueline, you don't have one? I think that's it. All right, good. So, so then Adina, you're done. Randy, you're done. Kathy, you've done your one. Jacqueline, you've done your one. Estelle, you've done your one. The others listening to the recording, you guys will get back to me. Okay, so we're going to look at 2 gifts today, service and planning. We're going to start with the gift of service. And I'll just go through some of the key aspects of it just as a reminder that this is a very task-oriented gift. And typically people who have a gift of service are doing something using their hands, okay? And craftsmanship, I talk about that as well. And if they don't have any hands, in craftsmanship, sometimes they use their feet or their mouth, they'll find a way. But with the gift of service, that's a helpful distinction to make, because all of the gifts, when people are in their gifts, of course they are being of service to others. So it is making the distinction between being of service through your gifts, okay, which you can do in any of the gifts, versus this gift of service. If I had another word, I've thought about what would be another word I would use for this, because people who have a gift of service are task-oriented doers, okay? It isn't just about thinking. Of course, they're thinking as they're doing, but there is tasks involved in what they're doing, hands-on, okay? So these people are multi-skilled, multi-talented. Often they are committed to the task at hand. And the biggest confusion can be between the gift of service and the gift of assistance. With the gift of assistance, people are dedicated. It's the dedication to a person. I think of Randy, for example, where Randy will move mountains for his wife. Randy will do whatever it takes. It's just like if she wants something, needs something, Randy finds a way to make it happen, or even anticipate what she needs and makes it happen before it's even evident. Okay, so that's a gift of assistance, dedication to the person. Randy also has the gift of service, so getting in and actually doing the tasks. And I lived with Randy and Pat. And, Randy is a doer. He's in there doing the dishes, doing whatever it is that it takes to get done. And some of you may not be so lucky to maybe have a partner that is somebody with a gift of service. But this is task-oriented, committed to getting the task done at hand that needs to get done. Not necessarily always in your own home, and not necessarily always for your own benefit. But when the opportunity arises to use your gift of service in a way that's meaningful for you and of benefit to others, you may find then that it really comes up to the surface. And an example I've often used is, it may not be so compelling to clean your own garage, or it may not be so compelling to get out and shovel the snow. But if the lady next door, the elderly lady next door, needs her driveway shoveled, people with the gift of service will be more apt to get out there and shovel that person's driveway and then do theirs after. Or, you know what I mean? So there's just this real connection to getting the job done. And when it's a benefit to others, there's often a real, I don't even know if a sense of joy as much as it just is a no-brainer for these people. They just get the jobs done. And often they're not great at delegating. Okay, so with the gift of service, because the joy is in doing the task, they may not be great delegators. So often they're lousy delegators. And so somebody with a gift of service who is doing a task that they're enjoying, you go and ask them, can I give you a hand? And they'll say, no, that's okay. And you can see they've got a mountain of stuff to do, but for them, the joy is in getting that done. So the reason they don't delegate is because they enjoy doing it. It's not necessarily, well, it can sometimes be for the gift of service people. It can sometimes be that they'd sooner do it themselves because they know they'll do it right versus delegating it to somebody else. But somebody with a gift of service will enjoy working with somebody else who has that gift as well, and they know it, and they just get stuff done. It's like 2 people with a gift of service can do the work of 5 people. So somebody with a gift of service loves working with somebody else who has the gift of service. Somebody with a gift of service working with somebody else who doesn't have the gift of service, it's not always quite so enjoyable because they have to give a lot of direction. The other person has to be told everything about what it is needs to be done. They start the task, they get off track, they don't finish the task. You know, so sometimes people with the gift of service prefer to work alone because they're focused and they can get it done. Jacqueline and I and Fraser all volunteer at a thrift store on Thursdays, and you can just tell this is such an easy one to spot in a setting like that. They are worker bees. They don't particularly want to be distracted. They don't really want to spend a lot of time sitting around yakking. They just want to work and get it done. And then there's others who want to volunteer at the thrift store who have beautiful hearts, kind personalities, you know, very generous of heart, all of that. And they will chat, you know, with the customers out front. And, you know, that what I'm saying, they bring other gifts to it, but not necessarily the actual tasks that need to get done. There's one gal that used to volunteer with us, and she was so focused on the task that she'd be out front in the store. She'd be sorting and making the racks look nice. You know, she'd sort all the clothes by sizes and then by colors, and it would make it all look nice. And she said to me one day, it drives me nuts. I'm trying to get these, you know, racks sorted out, and there's always frickin' customers getting in my way. That's somebody who is so focused on the task and has such a love of just wanting to get that job done that forgets the bigger picture, that there's people trying to see the clothes on the rack and she wants to jam them with her elbow out of the way so that she can get her job done. Okay, so service people are very focused on the task. Okay, so what kind of jobs might align with the gift of service? And that's if we were going to look at this gift totally in isolation. So who can give me some ideas of jobs out there, like paid jobs, let's say, where a gift of service would be a bonus?
I'd say a mechanic.
A mechanic, okay, yeah. And a mechanic, that's a good example. A mechanic, a gift of service, and also I would say likely a gift of craftsmanship, because there's a lot of tools involved and things you got to know. You know what I mean? It goes beyond just using their hands. They're having to use a lot of instruments. But yeah, that's a good example. Okay, so a mechanic. And who else?
Someone who works on an assembly line.
Working on an assembly line. Great example. I mean, to just be doing that task and be happily doing that. Who else? Jacqueline?
The fellow who cleaned our furnace ducts before we had the air conditioning put in. Like, I noticed that he was so meticulous in getting his job done. And when I commented on it, he said, I just love knowing that people are going to be breathing clean air when they turn on their furnace. And he just spoke with such heart. It was like, oh, I got to remember this one.
That's great.
So it might have been a mixture of craftsmanship in there as well.
And Kathy, anything come to mind?
What comes to mind is someone who cleans houses.
Yes, exactly.
House
Perfect
cleaning.
example. Yes, somebody who happily cleans houses and is really happy to do that. One of the guides that came in the program years ago, her husband owned a very busy business, and she would go in and help. And so it was a HVAC business, so central heating and air conditioning. And he started as a technician, and then he built it into a big business. He had a lot of employees, lots of trucks. It was a really big business. And so she wanted to contribute. So she'd go into the office, and she said to me, she said, the only thing I was interested in doing was cleaning the bathrooms. She said, I loved keeping the floors clean. I'd clean up the kitchen after the team. And she said, it would drive her husband nuts because he wanted her to be sort of have a role that status-wise, the wife of the owner of the business, he wanted her to be doing something that was a little fancier than, and she was like, I just want to clean. So what she ended up doing is the way she contributed is after the office would close, she would go in and she would totally do that office every night like a janitor would in a job like that, and just get everything cleaned and the coffee ready to go in the morning. And she would leave there at 11 o'clock at night, and she said she felt fantastic. Her husband never understood it, but for her, so when she did the program, it was this huge aha moment for her that she realized that one of her strongest gifts was service, and that's what she really loved to do. So funny, how just an awareness like that can make a change. He never really got it, but he did the program. He did not have the gift of service. So he just could not wrap his head around the fact that I remember him saying to me, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I want to believe what you're saying is true. I just can't believe that anybody would find cleaning the kitchen and the floors in the bathroom anywhere near as interesting as running a business, right? And his big gift was vision. Yeah. So people who work in, where you can spot it, for example, in children, like even in a school setting, I'm sure teachers would start to see at an early age the kids that have a gift of service. Mrs. So-and-so, teacher, can I help? Can I do that here? I'll do this, I'll do that, right? So little kids that want to help out. Teenagers where they're perfectly happy to go shovel the neighbor's driveway or mow the lawn for $20 or $15 or whatever it is that maybe nowadays it's $40. But, kids that are really happy to do task-oriented stuff. Customer service people may have a gift of service. People who work in fast food restaurants, retail stores, call center reps, bank tellers, the school custodian. There's just, endless amounts. So when you look at the number of gifts per population, what I'm seeing is certain gifts are more necessary and more apparent at certain times in history. And there are times in history, for example, like craftsmanship. We're going to be going to Italy. The guides that are coming with us to Italy in the fall are going to see this, where there are times in history where craftsmanship, really was where it was at, and there'll be massive evidence of that. Now in our society's technology, which is still in that gift of craftsmanship, but people that develop technology, right? Service is one of those gifts that is apparent throughout history all the time. And I would say if you took a group of 50 people, just 50 people that live in a town, you'd likely see always more people with the gift of service than maybe a gift of sensitivity or a gift of healing. So it's not that certain gifts are holier, better, greater status, more important than others. They're all the same. However, there are some that there just is more of it, and that's by necessity, to be able to function as a society. There is a greater need for people with the gift of service. So it can seem more ordinary to some. And this gift of all of them is the one that people will typically view as not very sexy, boring. Doesn't everybody do this? Like, to the people who have it, it can really seem like it's no big deal. When people understand it, it helps a bit. But what it does do is for people who don't have it, it helps them really appreciate the ones who do have it. And it helps them understand why They just cannot wrap their head around the fact that somebody would ever work at Tim Hortons and be happy to do it. You know, or that somebody would be doing task-oriented work and be happy doing it, right? So places you'll see it readily is the people who do volunteer and put up their hand to show up and get things done. So if you're involved in organizations, Estelle, I know you're involved in organizations. When there's a project coming up or a campaign or something and you need tasks done, typically the people who will put their hands up first are these people with the gift of service when it's task-oriented work. You know, if they're volunteering for task-oriented work and it's not their gift, it could be that they just love teamwork, they like chatting with people, they maybe get in the way, they're not particularly helpful, but maybe they like the environment of a team. But usually people who put up their hand to get the task done are the ones with the gift of service. These are the people who, at your dinner party, they're getting up and they're clearing the table, and it can drive people nuts, especially people who don't have the gift of service. It drives them nuts when people get up and start clearing the table. And because if they're not thinking that way, you know what I mean? And then for somebody with the gift of service, if I see somebody get up to start clearing the table, I'm happy because now I can get up and do it too, because I'm very much that way. I'm more task oriented and I have the gift of service. I'm much happier getting up, clearing the table than sitting around chatting often in those scenarios, right? They're the people that show up at your door and before you have their coat off, they're saying to you, what can I do to help? You know, if they're coming over for an event or for a party, they're the ones that will come and offer their help. So when people come to you and say, what can I do to help? Give them a task. And if they don't have the gift of service and they're just being polite, then they won't offer again. You know, they'll offer once and then they'll go sit down and disappear in the ethers, or they'll do the job half done and then you won't see them again. But for the people who have the gift of service, if they come to you and say, what can I do to help? They want something to do. And that's what makes them happy. And that's what makes them, you know, feel on purpose. And when you really get this, it makes your life so much easier. When people say, what can I do to help? You give them something to do. And now they get to feel on purpose, right? And they get to step into their gifts. Okay, so any questions about that? Anything you guys want to say about that? Who thinks they have this gift? Jacqueline, Randy, okay. And so Adina, Estelle, and Adina, if you feel that you don't have this gift, what are your thoughts then around that?
Well, it's funny because it came up in one of the exercises. Service came up and I sort of rejected it. Well, it makes me see my husband in a different light because he is very service oriented. And so I have great appreciation. And just what you said about the delegating, he's horrible at delegating. Whereas I will like tie the kids in. And so I'm delegating off. I'm like, hey, he's clearing the dishwasher. He's like vacuuming. She's doing this. And he just like hoards all of the tasks to himself. And I just, you know, as a parent thing, I'm like, what the heck? Like, so, but like, it just gives me I'm like, oh, okay. I kind of have a better understanding of what's happening there. So yeah, so it's good.
Yeah, excellent. There's one gal that a friend of mine who probably her biggest aha out of everything, and she's also a certified guide, was around this, realizing neither of her kids had it. And it used to, she really has that, plus she's super organized, and her husband also has a gift of service. So they're always doing and, you know, whatever, and neither of their kids have this. And she said she spent, you know, 15 years yelling at her kids all the time. And then when she realized this, she was able to reframe it, understanding that because it wasn't just about what wasn't getting done in the house, it's that she would see that they wouldn't step up at grandma's house, you know, or they wouldn't step up when they were in a situation where she was wanting to shove them from the back and say, come on, you guys, go help, you know, when it was in other people's homes or scenarios, and they just didn't get that. Or they do it and they'd be grumbling and, you know, that kind of thing. And she said she really got this, and it allowed her to let that go and instead really focus on what their gifts were, and then really helping them shine in that area. And both of her kids have the gift of craftsmanship. So once she understood the difference, then it was, rather than, why aren't you helping your grandmother? It was like, hey, we're going to grandma's. While we're there, could you fix her toaster? It's not working. Or, you know, like that's something that fell more in the realm of craftsmanship. Or with her daughter, she's very creative. So when we go to grandma's, how would you like to do her nails? Right? And then now, and her daughter actually has a manicure nail business. And does the most amazing artwork on people's nails. But she was able to see ways where she could magnify the gift of craftsmanship, what she saw in her kids, rather than focusing on being what is wrong with them that they're not stepping up and helping. Right? So it's a subtle thing. For her, it changed everything in her life, she said. It just got rid of all the anger and the frustration and the resentfulness that she harbored towards her kids that she saw as lazy.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I have to sit with that.
And Estelle, you had something you want to say?
No, well, very briefly, I was just thinking that it comes up in mine, but I'm still going to explore it because I don't see myself as enjoying these tasks. So when I do, like you were talking about some organizations, hospitality keeps popping up because I'll go in and make tea for everybody. So that gives me something to do and chat. You know, it gives me an excuse to go around and talk to people because I'm not comfortable just going up and chatting. And at the end, I will just clear everybody out of the kitchen and just do the dishes. But I'm not saying I'm enjoying it. It's just like, get out of my way. Let's get this done and we can move on. So I don't know that I have it. And when I did level 1 with another woman my age, it was the same thing. We all kind of, you know, we were saying, yeah, we do this stuff. But I think the key has got to be, are we really enjoying this? Or are we just doing it to be efficient so we can move on to other things? So I'm going to keep thinking about this one.
Right. Good. Yeah, good point. Well, if somebody said to you, Estelle, I'd really like to, while you're out chatting with everybody, I'd really like to get in and do the dishes and clean up in your kitchen. How would that feel?
I would let them do it.
Yeah.
yeah, just go, you know, but other people do seem to hesitate because it seems like such a Joe job. So I'll just go in and let's just do this, right? But no, if anybody else, you know, and you get people from other cultures, because I work with this group, this Skin of Diversity, they, you know, some of the women seem very comfortable because this is something they can do. In any language, you can do dishes, right? So if they look very comfortable doing it, I happily let them do that. But not everybody steps up.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, that's good. Great example. Okay, so let's look at the gift of planning. So the key aspects of this gift is that when we look at from the perspective of in an organizational structure, let's say, the planner is the person who is sees how the vision can be met. So a planner is not necessarily the visionary. They may not have a vision of what needs to happen, but somebody speaks a vision and the planner is the one who sees how it can happen, what needs to be done in order for that vision to be met, in order for the project to be completed. So in the job world, these are often project managers, all right? So a project manager, or you would hope in any kind of management position, anything with manager attached to it, you would hope the person would have this gift of planning, because typically whether you're managing people or whether you're managing a project, you need a plan, you need to have a system in place, you need to have some structure, there needs to be some organization. And those are the key things that come with the gift of planning. So this is an important distinction. A person with a gift of service, if there's a system and structure in place, they go at it, and the system and structure is there, they don't have to think about it, they can function within it, okay? But somebody with the gift of planning is the person who can create the structure and create the systems, not just work within a structured systems. So the reason I say that is because I have a woman that's in my coaching right now, and she said to me, I have a planning gift. She said, I love systems and structures. And I said, you love creating them? Like, give me examples of where you've put a system or a structure in place for something to be more efficient or effective. And she said, oh, and she couldn't really think of anything. And then later she came back and she said, oh, I realize I love working within any kind of organization where there are systems and structures, right? Like you guys will often say to me, the script worked for me, the system in this program works for me, right? That's that. So you enjoy working within a system and structure. But this gift is related to actually creating the systems and the structure, okay? And then the natural attributes of somebody who has a gift of planning is mediation, negotiation, and delegation. So this is often a way to distinguish between service and planning as well, is people with the gift of planning are excellent at delegating and they like delegating. Now, if they have planning and service, okay, you can see where it can get a bit blurry, because service people like to get the task done themselves. Planning people are capable of delegating. So service people are often really not good at delegating, you guys. They start to show someone how to do it and they end up doing it themselves. They just are not great at explaining and handing it off, whereas these people, they can delegate. Negotiation and mediation is not something that somebody with a gift of planning may readily know about themselves, but what I usually say to them is if everything resonates with them in this gift and they really feel they have this gift, I'll usually say to them, if you're ever in a situation where you see that there's some negotiation needed or mediation, jump in and give it a shot. This is a great place for planning people to experiment, is in negotiation and mediation, because they have a natural, it's like because of that organizational structural thinking that they have, in a situation where a negotiation is needed, they can see it that way. Does that make sense? Like they can just logistically and logically see that how a negotiation can happen, or how a situation can be mediated for a favorable outcome. So they're naturally good at that, but a lot of people with this gift haven't had the opportunity to do that. They are implementers. Here's how we're going to do, here's what needs to get done, and here's how we're going to do it. Okay, here's how we're going to do it. Now, if a planning person is working on their own and they don't have a team, they're often the ones that are actually doing it as well. But if they have a team to work with, then the experience for the team can be a really positive one, because they're working in a system that they know where they're going, they understand what needs to get done, they know what their job is within the structure. So even if they don't like the person necessarily, like even if the project manager, let's say, or the manager of a department, even if they don't particularly like their personality, there is usually an appreciation of the gift. Because if you're working within an organization where there is structure and systems in place and everybody knows what they're doing and it's organized and there's a vision and they know where they're going, that is where you'll see real success, and people working within that team enjoy it. They enjoy the experience of it. That's the thing I've heard the most, is the joy of working within a system where there is structure and systems in place and people know what they're doing and they know what the expectations are. When this isn't in place, if there's a project, sometimes you'll see this in a church type setting or volunteer type settings where people aren't looking for gifts as much as they're just looking for anybody to put up their hand, and somebody steps up to take charge of a project and they don't have this gift. It can be very frustrating for people, and it is particularly frustrating for somebody who has this gift to work in a scenario where it's not present, because it will drive them nuts. And I think Jacqueline would agree that we have seen that, like volunteering at a thrift store, where the vision is not super clear. The vision, the outcome of raising funds to support a hospice is clear. But the vision for the store itself, the structures, the systems, it's tenuous at best. Because you have every day 30 different volunteers, every single day 30 different volunteers who all have a different idea how things should be done. So there are some systems in place that have been put in by necessity, often by the volunteers, right? The volunteers who have this gift. But when you're working within an organization where this is not present, it is not pleasant, and it's particularly unpleasant for people with this gift or the gift of service. They can get really frustrated. The confusion can happen with service and planning is where somebody who has a really strong service gift can appear to be highly organized, and then they get promoted into this gift and they're right out of their area of comfort, and it's not their gift. That Peter principle, you know, where you get advanced into your area of, what's the expression about being, you get promoted right into your, I know, anyway, I can't think of it.
Getting promoted out of, it sounds like.
Yeah, it is. It's that Peter principle of where you're, but there's a particular expression, but it's being promoted right out of your gift. So that can happen for service people, where because they are so focused and they can get the work done of 5 people, other people will often say, well, you should, why don't you take charge of this project? Because you're so good, you're so efficient, you're so great at getting things done. And then now that person has moved into a position of planning systems and structures, and they're the worst delegators. So they end up doing everything themselves. And you will, when you hear somebody saying, I took this on and I ended up doing everything myself, that is typically the sign of somebody with a gift of service who does not have a planning organizational type of gift, right? Because these people can delegate. Yes, Randy?
It's called being promoted to your level of incompetence.
That's it. Being promoted to your level of incompetence. That's it. Yes, that's exactly it. And that can often come from people, this being misunderstood. If we look at something like the building of a house, for example, a contractor, like a house contractor, so let's say, first of all, the person who wants a house built. So let's say I buy some property, I want a house built, and I have a vision for the house I want, okay? And so I look through blueprints and whatever, and I end up finding the house I want, and I have a vision, okay? And I'm like, you know, I really want this to be like this, and I know this isn't in the plans, but I have a vision for my deck looking this direction and for the kitchen to be shaped like an L because I want this or whatever. So I may have the vision. The house contractor is the one who comes in. They hear that vision, right? And then their job is to take that whole project of building a house and breaking it all down into all its different components. So to organize all the subcontractors, to keep it all flowing, for all the steps to happen in the right order, for all of the trades to show up at the right time. They've got to be able to negotiate deals. They've got to stay within a budget. They've got to juggle the budget that the developer or the owner of the house has given them. They might have to mediate between the unhappy homeowner and a subcontractor. So somebody like that, like a contractor, if they don't have this gift, I don't even know why they would do it. It would just be a disaster, right? Because they've got to be able to think everything through, from taking a piece of empty property to a house being completely finished, and all of the things that have to happen. Now, I have 2 friends who, when they had their house built, they actually found themselves ending up as the contractor because they had this gift, and they were able to, though they had somebody by name that was a contractor, I could tell that this person actually had this gift because they really were the ones that were actually making it all happen. They were really the ones delegating and telling the contractor what they wanted done. These are people that have this gift and they're able to do that if it's meaningful to them. I have an organizational planning gift. It would not be meaningful to me in any way, shape, or form to be involved in all the steps it takes to build a house. That is not at all where that would interest me in any way, shape, or form. So event planners, if they don't have this gift, I don't even know why they would do this. A wedding planner, somebody who's a wedding planner, you would certainly hope that they would have this gift, because why else would they ever want to go into that? Because it's all about taking a bride and groom from the day they decide they're going to get married all the way through to a successful outcome of an event and the 50 million steps in between and having that all organized. Okay. If I go online and I print, here's a checklist for weddings. Okay. So if I go and I print the list that somebody else created called Checklist for a Successful Wedding, and I go through and I check each item off, that does not mean that and the outcome is good. That doesn't necessarily mean that I have a gift of planning. That's somebody else who created that structure and that list of how to plan a wedding if you can't afford a wedding planner. Okay, and if I go through and I check each thing off and I help that happen, that does not necessarily mean I have a planning and organizational gift. It means I was the beneficiary of somebody who created that structure and that checklist. Okay, make sense? Yes, Kathy?
My daughter just got married in Maine, and it was required for her to have a wedding coordinator. And oh my gosh, what a blessing she was. I mean, everything that I started to stress out about and thought that I needed to make sure needed to get done because I don't have this gift. My husband clearly does, but I, don't. She just took care of. She just swooped in, and it got so that I knew, okay, if something comes up, oh, this needs to be done, I would, instead of trying to figure it out myself, I would just go to her. And right on top of every single step, every detail, it was miraculous. It was amazing, and just it made the whole event, everyone just contributing their gifts made the whole event so joyful, and just we were able to just enjoy the presence of love and each other and the event, and it was amazing.
Yeah, listen to that language, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
When you listen to Kathy's language, amazing, miraculous, it was outstanding. And I'm sure you gave your wedding coordinator that feedback, right? Like that yeah, exactly. So those are such clear signs that Kathy was working with somebody who was in their gift. When you hear that kind of language, amazing. It was extraordinary what they did. When my daughter got married, she didn't have a wedding planner and didn't think she really needed one. And 5 minutes into planning the wedding, I knew after the first conversation with her. So I created, a plan for her and a log master. Like a log master is how you run an event, pretty much minute by minute. And I created this, I have this document still to this day. The log master outlived her marriage. She's not married anymore. But this document, I tell you, could be sold for somebody. Like it literally is. It's not a checklist so much for a wedding, but it shows how, what time the limousine's going to arrive, like all of it, right? It's just the whole thing. And I had so much fun doing that. I'm telling you, I enjoyed that, creating that and watching it unfold and seeing her not have to think about anything, because it was all there. I enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed the wedding. It was just fabulous to just be able to create that. It was fun for me to be able to create this whole timeline and how everything was going to unfold over 3 days. It was really fun. Okay, so the event planner or the person with the gift of planning or the project manager has to be applying their gift to something that is meaningful to them. All right, so that's really, really an important thing. My brother-in-law, when my husband and my brother-in-law's mom died, he has this gift, and he just stepped up. From the moment that woman died, he stepped up and he did all the planning, everything, the organization of everything to do with from death to all the way through, past the funeral and then the will and all of it. And he said to me after, because he didn't understand sacred gifts, and he said to me, I don't know how to explain it. It sounds really weird. As devastating as it was that my mom died, and as sad as I felt, I have never felt more alive. And it was that what was meaningful to him was to be able to just make this all happen for my husband doesn't have this gift. So first of all, to just be able to support his brother in sort of taking charge of this and seeing it all through and every detail looked after, being able to delegate. He delegated a lot of stuff, but all the way through to the will, the execution of the will, all of that, right? And then saying he never felt more alive, even though for him it was one of the saddest moments of his life. And that, to me, that is just a sign of somebody who stepped into this gift in using it in a way that's meaningful to them. So people with any gift, they can do things, right? But when it's meaningful to them, that's where this whole magic really kind of happens, right? Okay, so any questions, comments, anyone that has this gift who wants to comment on it? Jacqueline?
In which of those two categories, the two gifts that you looked at today, service and planning, would you put the word efficiency? And to explain that, I'll give you a little bit of background. Because for me, I believe I have the gift of service, but what makes me nutty is if I'm given a task to do and it's something that I want to do, but it's done in an inefficient manner, that's the first thing I want to do, is to organize it in such a way as it gets done way more efficiently.
Yeah, and that's often a gift of service, because the reason that one person with a gift of service can often do the work of 4 other people or 5 other people is because they're super efficient and they have supernatural radar to be able to see where those inefficiencies are. So so when you hear that, does that help you distinguish service from having an organizational gift of creating systems and structures?
I'm not really sure, because I've been in situations where I've had to create because the system has not existed, and I do get a certain amount of satisfaction out of doing that and seeing it run. But again, it could be an extension of service, because the mediation and negotiating, not so much. Efficiency, right up at the top.
Yeah. And also when we look at our personality types, there are certain personality types that also have more of that in them than other personality types. So within our humanness also there can be some of that as well. But typically the efficiency service people, it often drives them nuts when something is being done in a way that could be done much quicker, because the whole thing with that gift is getting the job done in a way that's effective and efficient, and getting it done rather than doing 15 steps. If you can do it in 3 steps, that is often more an indication of that person with the gift of service. Planning and organization, if we take a scenario like an event, and at an event, let's say you're given the job to count papers into stacks for handing out in rows, okay? And you're given that job, and you see somebody who is taking this big pile of paper, and they're going like this, 1, 2, 3, and then they're, right? So what's your first thought would be like, oh my God, get a little rubber finger and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then do, right? So service people, they just see that. It's different than a big vision of a plan and a breakdown of a plan. The person who's overseeing the event has delegated somebody to go and count papers and put them in stacks to do the rows, and they may not get involved in how that person does that. They delegate it, they let it go. But then the person who is doing that is that person who does or doesn't have the gift of service, and then you can see it. When you get into the far reaches of the tasks actually being done, it's very easy to spot.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy?
It seems to be both planning and service came up really strong for my husband in the conversation this morning. And when we were talking about service and that they don't normally delegate, he actually, the distinction for me seems to be that that there are times when he is in his planning gift that he is creating systems for other people to work within. So the implementing for other people to contribute. And he said There are definitely times, or for the most part, he said, I'm really good at delegating, because he, sees where for people to fulfill their roles in implementing the plan that he has designed. But he says, I have no problem at all rolling up my sleeves and actually doing it if I need to. Yeah. Or if I see that, and he, clearly is in joy when he is, when he's in the gift of service, because he's very much like you described, Randy. He just bends over backwards to get things done. Unfortunately, he's gone for 2 months at a time, so I don't get the benefit of that for periods of time. But when he comes home, he has always, he's always had a schedule like this. When he comes home, he always just goes above and beyond to make up for just doing everything. And he's about ready to leave, and he's just like, okay, I got to get this done and this done and this done before I leave. And at work especially, he just like creates those systems. He's done it forever.
Yes, so that's a great example of where different gifts can be called out of you in different scenarios. So your gift is not always active everywhere you go, all of your gifts. So for me, service was the central gift of in my nursing career. I was just a hard worker at the bedside, right? I was a real bedside nurse. That I didn't want to be on committees. I hated going to those meetings, drove me nuts. Just let me do my work. And when I volunteered with Jacqueline at events in camps, it was my service gift that was most activated, and other gifts, encouragement. But when I got hired by another company, I did not want to volunteer. I did not want to be doing tasks. I could see that company lacked organization and planning in the area of events. And I was called, that gift was called out of me to create systems and structures that were needed to run events and to put all those things in place. I was not interested in doing the tasks anymore. I delegated a lot. I could do them all because, I was able to do them all, but it was the gift of planning that was called out of me. So remember, these gifts are in us from the time we're born till we die, but they're going to be called out of us in different scenarios at different times. So it's not like all of our gifts are activated all the time. That's why you want to look back over your life and look for patterns where you see it. Planning and organization is not a gift I can relate to prior to being 10 years old or prior to being 20 years old. But later on I could start to see it. And even in nursing, I knew, like they asked me once to step up as a head nurse. She was going away for a month. I was only a nurse for about 3 years. And they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm a brand new nurse. And they said, they wanted me to do it and they challenged me to do it. And I took her position. And I to this day have letters from doctors who sent me letters saying they had never seen that unit run more efficiently than when I did that. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that I had this dormant gift of organizing. You would not believe the systems. She was gone for a month. And I was like, man, I put in so many systems in place that were not there. And I didn't have an understanding of any of that. But then I went back to doing nursing for the next 20 years, just focused really in that gift of service. But then it came back later again. So it's looking back, I could see evidence of it. But all these gifts are not active in you all the time.
Wow. That's really cool how that works.
Yeah. It's when they are called out of you. And that's why there are times in history where you will see more people with certain gifts because it is needed. It's needed during that time of evolution or change that's happening on the planet. There will be certain gifts that are, so I would say right now, like people with a gift of compassion for the environment and people that are becoming activists in the area of environmentalism. That's not something we saw or heard of, or, you read historically. You weren't reading about that in the Middle Ages. They were destroying the environment. They were cutting down every single tree in Europe, right? But now there's a need for it, so it's being activated in people, and there are more people that are really stepping up with that, real compassion for the environment, and they're really being mobilized and motivated in that area. So it depends on what's needed of how these gifts are going to be called out of you. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up there with those two gifts. Let me just look at.
Nick, I have a question that keeps coming up.
Yeah.
And that is, people will ask me, well, what's the difference between sacred, like it has to do with the beingness and the humanness. So they're like, okay, well, is this just like the Myers-Briggs, or is this just like the Enneagram, or they'll list like all the 50 mil or Strengths Finder and all those million different things.
Yes.
And so I feel like I kind of know the answer, but then I get confused. So
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could help me navigate that.
Yeah, there are many, this is exactly what I say to people. There are many assessments out there, and Myers-Briggs is a great example of where they have pulled some of everything. So it's kind of a mixture in the Myers-Briggs of personality types, of gifts, but the result of mixing them can create some assumptions that aren't necessarily true. And the Enneagram is a great example of it being 100% focused on humanness. The Enneagram is so, I love the Enneagram because it is absolutely focused on humanness and does not get into gifts at all. Sacred Gifts looks at gifts and does not get into personality. They're very, very distinct. Myers-Briggs is a mix of kind of both, but not a great distinction of either. So it gives you directions in which to go based on strengths you have. But what we've learned through Sacred Gifts is that you can be really good at doing something that does not make you feel fulfilled. You can be really good at doing something that actually sucks the life out of you. So a lot of those strength finders in Myers-Briggs is moving you in the direction of based on what you're good at and that type of thing of where you should go. But just because you're good at something, it does not mean it's your area of giftedness. So, I had one person say to me once, I've done all of those assessments. And I said, okay, well, now you have to do this one so that you can keep saying that. Because you can't keep telling people I've done all those assessments unless you've done this one. So do this one, right? And then they did it and they were like, oh my God, I get it. So, yeah, that's really the best way I can explain it, is that Myers-Briggs is popular. It weaves both into it, but what we're looking for are the things that make you feel on purpose and that are meaningful to you and that make you feel satisfied, not just at what you're good at. And if you can then follow that up with an example, people get it. So if I say to them, for example, I am really good at doing this and I can do it really well, but it is not what I want to spend the rest of my days doing. It's not something that's fulfilling for me. I'm just good at it. Okay, well then they're like, oh, okay, they get it. So for example, I'm really good at doing GST. I know how to do GST. And because of my organizational gift, I can just do it and I can get it done. I hate doing GST. If somebody said to me, well, look, you're so good at doing GST by yourself. You can do bookkeeping. Oh, some of you listening might be American. You don't know what GST is, like bookkeeping tax stuff. Yeah, I can do it. I would shoot myself before I'd ever spend the rest of my life doing it, right? So just, if I filled out a questionnaire, what are you good at doing? Oh, I'm good at doing bookkeeping. And well, then you should go in bookkeeping. That would be a nightmare for me. Right? So we're really looking at that piece about what is meaningful and satisfying to you. And Adina, I would add, not everybody on this planet is looking for that. If somebody is looking for where they're going to be successful in making the most money, that is not necessarily where Sacred Gifts are going to take you.
Right.
If you can make a lot of money doing something you don't particularly love.
Right. Fair enough. And if people are, so that totally helps with the skills and then the Myers-Briggs portion and the Enneagram thing. If people are simply working on the humanness, well, that leaves out a whole other portion, doesn't it then?
Yes, because the Enneagram is meant to help you identify which of the 9 personality styles you are. And then the function of the Enneagram is to learn how to become the healthiest version of that personality type. The Enneagram is not just to say you're a type 3, a type 4. It's, okay, if you think you're a type 4, here are the toxic, unhealthy type 4s and what they look like, and here's a really healthy type 4 and what they look like, and here are the steps to get there. So that's all about personal development and your character. Okay, so if you want to work on being a person of good character, you do that through the Enneagram. If you want to know the natural abilities you have within you that will allow you to be super effective in the world and to be doing something that feels totally fulfilling for you and be of benefit, then you're looking at sacred gifts.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay, so we're going to stop there. So the next part to this call, call number 6, is I'm going to start doing an overview of level 2. So I'm not going to do it right now live. I'm going to record this next piece and I'm going to post it in the group, but you must listen to it. Please, as soon as I post it, do listen to it because there's some assignments and activities you're going to need to do this week. So this week you've got some homework that you need to do while you're still preparing, thinking about your invitation and what you're going to do for preparing for your groups and that kind of thing, and how the invitation is going to go out. You are going to learn in this next video that I'm going to create, you're going to learn how to go into the back office and order the Discover Your Sacred Gifts audio program to send it to your level 2 clients. You're not going to be actually placing orders or getting people into level 2 at this point. You're just going to learn how to do it, and you're going to do one practice at it. Jacqueline, Estelle, those of you that have already done this, you may or may not need to do this. You can if you want, but for those of you that are new, Randy, Adina, Shannon, and Yvette, you're going to have to do first one practice run ordering the program for yourself and receive it in your inbox, and then tell me you've done that. And you're only going to start sending it out to people after call number, I think it's call number 7. Now, normally we take a break at this point between this call and call number 7. We usually take a 1-week break in the certification training in order to give you time to finish up level 1, in order to get your invitations out and start forming your groups and that type of thing. I didn't allow for that, so I think we're going to carry on, but we're going to see next week. I'm going to see where you guys are at next week, and if things are kind of falling behind and it's not appropriate to launch you all into level 2 right away, then we will take a break, okay? But like I say, I'll record the next piece for you. All you need to know is I need you guys to commit to watching the video that I'm going to post for this next piece in the next couple of days and doing what it is that I tell you to do in there, okay? So you're going to be receiving a code from me, and a code is what allows you to get into our back office through a special portal that allows you to order the program for free. And you're only allowed to use that code for free while you are in training. All right, once you're finished your training, whenever you come in our back office and you access that program to send to a client, you'll be paying $20 for it. All right, make sense? Okay, so, and that's for the new guides. Those of you that graduated before, you already know that you're grandfathered into that program. This is for the new guides. Okay, so I'm going to record this and I will send it, I'll get it posted probably in the next couple of hours, okay? So that's it for today. Any questions or comments? Or Kathy, what do you want to say in closing?
Sorry. I'm just, oh my gosh, I know I keep saying this, but I'm more and more excited as we go on. I'm really appreciating this opportunity to refresh and get back into the zone and the vibes of this. It just really inspires me. So thank you for offering your gifts and for even initially putting it out into the world, because it was exactly what I was looking for.
Thank you. Adina, what do you feel like saying?
Tori, were you calling on me?
I was just saying, is there anything you want to say in closing?
Oh, no, I think this is awesome. I'm ready to roll.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Good. And Jacqueline?
2 things actually. So for the recertification, I think I heard you say that we only need to do one person. Is that correct?
For level 1, you only needed to do one person, and for level 2, you can do either one individual or one group.
Okay.
Or, I mean, you can do both, but you need to take one person through it.
Okay, and if I'm not caught up, I think I am because I've been absent for the last 2 weeks. So if I'm not caught up, you'll let me know, please. Thank you.
Just thinking this right now, that the difference between doing it the first time, it was more, I think it was more personal. I was interested in doing it for myself and going as much as I could into that. And now I realize with doing the recertification, I really want to get this out to people. And I have to think, I'll be conscious of whether they really want to do it as well. But I really want to get this out to as many people, because I just see the benefits.
Yeah. And you can use, for you guys that are certified, you can use your invitations and rework them. Like right now, the invitation is written, I'm in training and I'm doing this. But if you just take that invitation and you rework it a bit to say, you know, I'm certified as a Sacred Gifts guide and this is what I offer, and you let the invitation do the talking. It's like a marketing piece. Let people read through it and then they will self-select yes or no. The only difference is you put your price at the bottom of what you're going to charge to do it.
Yeah, that's something I can talk about, because I will talk about that.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, and Randy, anything you want to say in closing?
Actually, Manek, because I've been involved in this website, webinar, funnel development stuff with the people in Arabia, I have to say that I'm very impressed with what you put together. It took you a hell of a lot of work to get where you are at now, and me being in service and some planning, I understand how much work it took, and I'm actually because of the service part, I can follow along, you know, piece by piece, and sometimes get it right. Anyways, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It is. It's been a lot of work, and the there's still a lot of aspects of. This has been really good for me to lead it myself for the first time in a couple of years, because Dana usually leads it, and I'm on the calls with Dana, but I'm kind of in the background and jump in or whatever when there's a question. But it's been very good for me to lead, because that whole systems person in me is like, I want to clean this up, I want to do this, I want to change this, I want to, you know what I mean, and tweak it and that. And I always do that, and sometimes I have to just stop and say it's good enough. It's not perfect, but it's good enough, and it can change lives the way it is. But there's always a part of me that sees how I could make it better. All right, well, thanks you guys very much. So stay tuned. Please keep checking into the group, because that's where I'm going to post this next recording that you'll need to do. All right?
Okay.
Okay, bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.